Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's Life Conversations with a Twist. I love my Fridays because most of my Fridays are spent doing podcast interviews, and it just is like the best way to like wrap up the week and be inspired to go into the weekend. And I'm so excited to have Audrey back.
Hey, I'm so excited to be here. This is so cool.
So, little backstory. If anyone hadn't listened to our previous podcast, you were on my podcast, probably my first season, probably one of my first like 20 guests, I would assume. I'd have to look back. But you actually helped me get started with my podcast. And I have so many podcasters reach out to me and be like, how do you get started? What do you do? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, literally, this wonderful woman who we connected with in this podcast space reached out and was like, and helped me. And like, I'm forever grateful because I would not be here without you.
Thank you. It was such a pleasure. It was so much fun. I love doing that. Like this, now I'm doing a little bit of retreat coaching as well, but like podcast, like I don't even think you can call it coaching, but like just helping somebody get started and get into the podcasting space. Like it's just a passion. And I don't have like an outline or, I don't have like a course or anything like on that, but I just like love like answering questions of like helping because it's such a big space and it's such a space that's growing. So it's like, why not? Like, let's do it, like it's such a cool way to express yourself.
Yeah. Well, and we'll get into this conversation. Well, actually, we can have this conversation now. One of the things that I wanted to bring up is you and I are along the same path. So you started way before I did in this like, personal development space. Obviously you started your podcast before me. We both do podcasting. We both do women's retreats. We both are like on this path. And I feel like sometimes people might think like that's competition or like, how do you invite someone who does a retreat to your retreat or whatever? Let's talk about like what that looks like on supporting each other and like creating this like community.
What's really cool about that is so I'm in a mastermind and I'm going to just tell a little story, but it'll circle back. But I'm in a mastermind where this coach, it's very similar. Like she has also a very similar, like, her coaching. Now she does mostly business coaching, but for a while there, she had like a membership very similar to mine. And she does retreats that are very similar, like obviously, because I'm like learning from her. And she like put me on her stage at her last event in February, I think it was. And multiple people asked her, why would you put Audrey on the stage when you guys have the same clientele and the same offers and all the same things? And it's because there's enough room for all of us. Like there really is. The people that I'm going to impact are not the same people like that you're going to impact or that she's going to impact, right? And it's so cool. Like actually after that whole thing happened at that event, about a week or two later, there were just people that were in that room that she didn't really know, personally as much, as maybe I did. And they were like messaging her, like, I'm so glad you had Audrey. I'm so glad Audrey spoke, blah, blah, blah. And it was like totally different people than the people who were like her people that like, I don't know, they're not going to come up to me at that event. They could give two, whatevers if I'm there or not. But it's like so cool to see that truly your people will find you. And there's like more than enough for all of us. Like, exactly, like your story is so different than mine that people are like totally going to, gravitate towards what makes them feel seen and heard. And that's, I guess, what's most important,
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. It's like we all have different stories and there's things that people are going to get like stuck to or something that inspires them about those stories. And so I love that. And I forgot you spoke and you're doing more of it and I love it. I'm so
Thank
not
you.
there yet. I actually just talked to somebody who they were a podcast guest and they connected me to this like speaker hub. Might have heard of
Oh,
it. And like
yeah.
I talked to them and they're really about putting people on stage and I'm like, I don't think I'm there yet.
We're gonna have to talk about that later because I want to hear more. I found a couple of those, but they're kind of some of them that I found are really expensive. So I was like, okay, it's fine. I'm just gonna grassroots this whole thing. But it's cool when you start like going to the events, making the connections, meeting people, and then it just like it just snowballs. Like you just start to meet all these people and they're like, I want you to share your story. And again, like back to the point that like all of our stories are so different that it's gonna impact who it's meant to impact.
Yeah. And that's one thing too. I'm not ready for stage. I'm definitely love being behind the camera and on the mic and not in
Yeah.
public yet. But that's like one of my goals is to get on more podcasts because like I've always had so many guests on mine, but now I'm like, okay, I need to like take the
Yep,
time and invest and get my story out to everybody else.
yep,
That's
yep. I just like went through that season as well of just like, okay, wait. I was like, wait a minute. I've had all of you guys on my podcast. I was like, okay, it's time to start being the guest. Exactly.
yeah.
But yeah, like, who wouldn't want you to come on and like share your story and share like it's true in my mind, it's like the more the merrier. Like let's just like all like I don't know, be together. Like that's the whole point.
Yeah. Well, okay, I want to go back to okay, when I first met you and you were first on the podcast, you were again, we're entering into this space. Um,
Yeah.
and you have a very different story. But when I met you, you were like single and doing nursing and you were just doing the podcast at the time.
Mhm.
Talk a little bit about where you've come from there,
Oh my
which is
gosh.
probably at
I
least
like
2 or 3 years ago.
I
Just
know. I'm just like how do I say this? Oh my gosh, there's so much I don't even know. Honestly, I do know what happened. So, um was I yeah, so I had gotten married. So I guess like I was just doing the podcast for a while and I always kind of knew like I wanted a little bit more. I
Mhm.
was like, I don't know if I want to leave nursing completely or at least take a little step back, but I was like, I know that there's something else I'm supposed to do. Maybe it's like a membership or write a book or it's something. I didn't know exactly what. And then I continued, I was on that like spiritual journey where I was like really talking about that in my podcast, really going through my own journey and and that's how I connected with my now husband as I it's so crazy like the short version of that story is just like this whole spiritual journey took me through learning about all these different religions and different types of like yoga like all kinds of stuff like I just did everything and I'll just never forget like getting really interested in his religion and then we met and I was just like oh my God he's a Sikh from India and I was like I like know I'm like blushing right now. Oh my God. I was like I know about this. Like this is so cool. I was like these are like my people. Like I love this so much. Like I had known like I was not even intentionally. It's like I won't like get into the whole story, but like unintentionally I was like learning their morning prayers for like this yoga practice. It was just all these things aligned. And we went on our first like date. It was like a little hike and I was like it's not a date. Like I'm not dating right now. I'm taking a break. It's not going to be a thing. And he was just such a gentleman and he was so like sweet. I just I don't know. So then at the end, of course, I was like, "Okay, can we kiss?" I literally asked. I was like, "Can we kiss?"
Oh my God.
He was so, and he's so like this very shy, like very reserved culture from India, and he was just like he starts like blushing, and he's just like, okay, like it was just like wow. Um, but anyways, fast forward a couple of years of like long distance. He was getting his master's on the East Coast. I was here doing my job, the pandemic, like all of that. So we did like long distance through a year and a half or almost 2 years. And then, yeah, we just got married last April. So
And does he currently lives here full time?
now
And what
he's
does he
here,
do?
which thank God. He's
Yeah.
an engineer, electrical engineer. So yeah, he just got his master's in that. And then, yeah, like thank God, like the day that he moved in was probably the happiest day ever for me. I was just, like, I actually had a lot of fun traveling. Prior to the long distance relationship, I hated flying. I like, you could not get me on a plane. And then all of a sudden, it's like, let's meet in New York. Let's meet over here. Let's go to Ohio. Like, all these places that I started to like visit. And I was just like, constant, like, every month I was like flying somewhere and going to all these events as well. And then it just, I was like, wow, I don't know if you know how I did it all. It's like always on a plane, I felt like. But, yeah, it was actually like so much fun. But when he finally moved in, I was like, okay, thank God. Like we can just kind of settle, like, and just kind of chill and like be in one place. And that felt so good.
I love that. How does he feel? I'm going to therapy about with my husband, and
Oh,
this
cool.
topic is coming up, right? About
Yeah.
how they feel about your personal development journey and your drive to like thrive and get on stages and empower women and do this work. How does he
Yeah.
feel and support you behind that?
He's super supportive. So I'm really lucky that I don't know if it's like a guy thing potentially, or if it's just him, but he's totally understanding. Like if I go, like especially if I host a retreat, that's been my biggest one. Some of the events are so busy that I can't call, but definitely if I host a retreat, oh my gosh, like I'm not going to call you. Like it's there's no time. And thank goodness he's been super understanding and supportive that like he's just not going to hear from me. I don't know if he even maybe he might even like it, who knows. But but the one thing though that has been coming up for us a lot is like the time that I'm spending. Like the time I'm spending doing everything. So currently what I'm trying to do now is just like it's like always on a Tuesday. So it's like every Tuesday is kind of our day off together. And so I'm just trying. It doesn't always happen, but I'm definitely trying to like be off my phone, off the computer,
Mhm.
spending like very intentional time with him for at least like a whole day. And then I forgot the other thing I was going to say, but oh, yeah, the other thing is he doesn't want to hear. So as a woman, I kind of want to come home and like unload the entire event and be like, literally, like, Friday I met so and so, and Saturday I did this. And he's just like, I just want you to come home, tell me that you had a great time. Like, give me the recap, but like, I don't want every single detail. I don't need the names of who you're meeting. Like, I don't know these people. He's like, who is Keisha? I don't know Keisha. And so it's just like, yeah. So that's been like another thing I've been working through is like, okay, spending more time with like my business friends.
Yeah.
I'll do like a whole recap on my drive home with like my good friend. And then like I get home and it's like, okay, like I don't have to like say the step by step of what happened.
It's like they care and they're supportive, but they don't want
Yeah.
to know all the detail. I would say
Yeah.
my husband's the same way. Like he'll be like, "How is it?" And he'll listen, but it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, and he doesn't listen to my podcast, which is fine.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Please don't.
some days I'm like, yeah, I'm like, especially some episodes. No, I'm just kidding. But it's just been interesting to like navigate that with,
Yeah.
and especially you have a husband from a different culture. So,
Yeah.
like, and I don't know like all the details and stuff, but a lot of these cultures don't let women have a voice almost. And
Right.
I wouldn't say his is like that, but like
Right.
that is kind of
Yeah, it's pretty
the world we
close.
live in.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, there's a lot I could say, but yeah, it's very different. Like if I, because I joke with him sometimes, I'm like, I think we could move to India and I could just host retreats there. It would be so cool and so pretty. And he's like, it's not. He's like, you can't just like get in the car and like go get ice cream or something. He's like, I would have to accompany you and for various reasons, but yeah, it's not like that. We can't just like get on a microphone and like start cussing. So, so it's really cool though that he totally gets it. He's been he loves like that's something we really connected on was the personal development journey.
Mhm.
Is like, he's like, I love it that you're always like reading these books and listening to podcasts and all of that. But yeah, when it starts to interact with his daily life, like every single day, it's like, okay,
He's like, enough.
a little step back, yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about you. You've gone to a lot of women's retreats, and we'll get to
Yeah.
like you hosting retreats, but like you go to these conferences and these women empowerment type of events. Talk about like why, and I'm asking you this. I know personally know why you're
Yeah.
doing it, but I think women who are listening who are like, do I need to go to these? Do I not go to these? I want to go to these, but I don't feel comfortable going.
Yeah.
That kind of space. Like, what is it about it that like helps you, and things that you've like discovered or learned through those events?
I'm like, I don't even know where to start.
I know.
It's such a powerful thing to go. So I know so many women who are just like, I can't, like, I don't have the time. What's the point? Like, why would I go to these things? And for me, it's been the connection. So I can't even tell you, it's crazy. Like we both know Keisha Get Married, and she hosted a live event a couple of years ago, was like her first one, but we were all in this like online space together. So
Mhm.
we all started like that's how we connected. And
Mhm.
like we all start connecting in like this Facebook group or something. It was cool to have the Facebook group connection and to talk to people, but meeting in person, there's something so different. It's just like it's crazy. Like when we all that was like my very first like that was like my first real like big event. And we all just like met up like we're in the hotel like lobbies or wherever we're all outside the doors waiting for it to open and just all over this hotel and it sounded like a bunch of like sorority girls like getting back together. Like it was just screaming and hugging and the photos and Oh, it was like literally so much fun. And I think just for me personally, it's like having that group of like-minded women.
Mhm.
Because like I can sit here and read like all these books you see behind me by myself and like never like talk about the concepts I'm learning or, listen to a really good podcast and just keep it to myself and maybe implement one thing I learned, maybe not, maybe nothing. I just like move on with my life. But having this group of women like you and me right here, like talking, literally like understanding and like recapping and talking about how like we're implementing this into our lives or how our lives change, like that is like the gold. Like to me it's like being in person with all of the attendees, and of course like getting to see the speakers in person is always really fun. Like I'm like, oh my god, like Trent Shelton, like I listen to your podcast all the time and like
Oh,
now I
he's
get to
so
like
cool to
hug
meet.
you like in real
Yeah,
life. Like
yeah,
I've
yeah.
met him a few times and he's so amazing. Like he's so cool. um just super super nice. Or like Lori Harder, like I'm obsessed with Lori Harder, but like it's just like so cool to like meet them and like get to talk to people like individually like that. But I think like the main thing is all the women you meet who you didn't even know were like existing. Like you're like, dude, you are like my person. And
Mhm.
like, yeah, like maybe you live in Ohio, but like with technology nowadays, it's no problem. Like I get to have like all these new like best friends. I have like more friends from these spaces than I do from like my life, which is like, I think it's really cool because
That
they
is
all
really cool.
understand me.
Yeah. And they're on the same path and then the same space.
Hmm.
I know they, if anyone is like is in a personal development growth or even
Yeah.
professionally, they always say like get in a room with people who are above you or who are
Yeah.
more farther in advance. And I think going to those events gives you the opportunity to do that and
Yeah.
to be able to like have one-on-one conversations. I went to Rachel Hawes' conference. There was like 7,000 people. I was not
Yeah.
meeting Rachel. I probably could have if I spent more money, but like
Yeah.
some of these more intimate, smaller
Yeah.
powerhouse women events and things like that, like the impact and the connections that you get to make and be one on one and with these people is it's
Yeah. It's insane. Like my friend, I didn't go to Powerhouse this year, but one of my good friends did, and she just posted a picture yesterday, like for the from the pajama party. Like she's in her pajamas with Lindsay, like no big deal. Like, and Lindsay's super, super cool too. I met her also at a small event, hosted by Jenna Klopfenstein. I never can say her name right, but that was in Ohio.
mm,
But it's like it's so cool. Like you get in the room, like, and I met Jenna from a different event, and then she had an event. Then I went to hers, and I met Lindsay there. Like, got to like hang out with her for a little while, and like it's so yeah. It truly like snowballs,
mhm.
and then it's so cool too. Like to me is like meeting people, but it's like the impact that it makes on you. So it's like you spend a little time with Lindsay, and I learned like XYZ about like my business or, some kind of personal development hack. Like she's been doing a lot of shadow work in her life. So she like talk about that, and then it's like, then I like got introduced, from her. Like then I got to meet like Lori Harder, and then it's like I get to talk about this with Lori, and then it's just so like cool, like the impact truly in these spaces, and especially the intimate ones, like you said, like really.
Well, and it's been so funny. I mean, we can kind of dive into the retreat because I feel like this is
Mhm.
like a segue into that. Doing the retreat work, it's like people know that they want to go, but they have a lot of
Yeah.
excuses.
Yeah.
Money is usually number one excuse, or kids, like their schedule, or they don't see the value in spending the money for themselves. But to get into a room, especially a retreat style where it's,
Yeah.
20 people or less or whatever it is, that you connect with people on such a different level because they're not in your everyday life. They're going through the same thing. And
Yeah.
it's like, it like dawns on you that like, you're not alone. You're not the only one that had mama issues. You're not the only one that has, self-confident issues. We all want to like work out more and do exercises and all, like so we're all doing these same things, and to be in a room and to understand that like people are like going through the same thing and now you have someone to connect with, it's priceless for me.
It's
I mean,
so
that's like one of the
priceless.
things for me.
I have to share this. So at the last retreat that I just hosted, I had somebody in their like late 40s come, and she was texting me, and she's like, I see like from your website or whatever, I see that you're really geared towards like millennials like yourself. And she's like, is it going to be awkward that I'm coming? And I was like, well, first of all, I don't just sell tickets just to sell tickets. So like it's not going to be awkward for you. Like I already know you're going to fit in just fine. And it was the coolest thing. We were doing s'mores. I think our last night there, we were doing s'mores, and there's like a Gen Z, like 23-year-old, and then there's this like late 40-year-old, and everybody in between. And these two girls were just like becoming like best friends. They're all like getting on like TikTok videos together and showing people all this stuff. And like, I don't know, it was just so cool how they connected, but they had so much in common. And I'm like, there's like over a 20-year difference between the two of you. But
Mhm.
look at you, you guys are like literally like friends. Like, this is so cool to see. And yeah, so exactly to your point, like we all have so much in common, but it's not until we get in the rooms and meet these people that we're gonna like make our, friends or even heal that wound. Like just talking about it together, our like shared experiences can heal these wounds.
Yep, absolutely. Talk about a little bit more about what your retreats look like. I know you do more overnights. How frequently
Yeah.
are you doing them? What's your game plan like for your
Yeah.
future of retreats? I personally want to know, but I want you to share it with the world too.
Yeah, so currently they're every 6 weeks. I was gonna bump them up to quarterly, but then I was like, that just takes away, to me, that takes away the excitement and like the exclusivity of like doing them so often. It's like then they're just really accessible.
Mhm.
But I have like a 4-part series. So basically, like, the first one is like super deep healing, like getting into the roots and like really deep healing, all the way up to the fourth one, which is like you've kind of done that healing and now you're really like you really have stepped into like that highest self era, the truest self, the authentic version, and you're embodying that. So like there's kind of like it's kind of like you come on the journey and then most people kind of graduate, they'll come back like later on. But yeah, so every 6 week or 6 months, excuse me, and they're always like a whole weekend. So we come in on a Friday night, kind of unwind. We have like some mocktails, do a couple of our experiences, and then all day Saturday, and then Sunday, like up till Sunday afternoon. Usually we have like a big group lunch together, and then that's when it ends.
I love that. And are they mostly Sonoma County? Are you were in Tahoe?
Yeah, so at first, I'm still kind of deciding on what I'm doing. I know a lot of retreat hosts kind of find like one house that they like and then stick to that house or that location. I don't know why that just doesn't feel good to me, so I've been kind of just doing all over. I do have to say I love doing them in Bodega Bay. I think like so the April one is going to be out there again, and my very first one was there, and it's just something about like the ocean has been like a part of my healing journey, and I think like everybody loves the ocean, right? So but yeah, that's been like my thing is like the very first one, we had yoga out and it was just like these panoramic views of just like the entire ocean and just like it just like literally is like so beautiful.
Mhm.
But also yeah, like we did one in Truckee. That was really fun. It was I mean, honestly, like it was so cool. I did like a little mini sound bath like on Donner Lake and um yeah, so I don't know if I'm gonna like settle into one place or not. I have no clue.
It is fun to like get to know different other places to
Yeah.
go in areas for sure.
Yeah.
And I definitely think like the environment, like, yeah, someone's like, why don't you just host them like at your office? I was like, no. Like
Yeah.
there's something about being away from the everyday life, even if it's 20 minutes away, but being one with nature. And I was not a woo-woo like at all. Like my why for this retreat is to put women in a space together to like
Hmm.
inspire and empower each other. Like that for me,
Yeah.
that is my thing. But I
Yeah.
partner with my friend Alicia Parks, who is a, yoga instructor, and she's super woo woo, like vegetarian,
So
like
good.
completely opposite of me. We totally balance each other out. And she was like, I remember the first retreat. She's like, "You are gonna hug a tree by the end of this retreat," and I was like, oh, wait, hug a tree? Are you kidding me? Like this is like absolutely so
That's so
much woo
sweet.
woo. I can't handle it. There's something about being in nature and grounding yourself and just being in this space where like the outside world is not talking to
Yeah.
you. It's so amazing.
Yeah, no, truly. I absolutely love it. Like, that's why the other reason, like, why they're not always at the ocean or something when I host, because it's just like, I don't know, like it's something is like about having different spaces, different types of nature. I did one near Armstrong Woods recently, and that was cool because you could just have like the forest, basically, all the redwood trees. Like, I totally agree. Like, something about just being out in nature and the fresh air, and even being like away from home, but close enough that if there was truly an emergency, you could get home and it wouldn't take forever. Like, that was one thing when I did the retreat, like out in Truckee. That was probably the farthest one I've done. It was a little bit harder because as much as I go there pretty often and as much as I know the area, there were still things that came up during the retreat that I needed to kind of like pivot or think quickly or like phone a friend. Like, my sister spends way more time than I do there. So I like literally calling her. I was like, oh my God, why isn't the beach access like, because it was Memorial Day weekend. So I like, yeah. So I was like, why isn't where we always go, like it's not open, and like what am I gonna do? And certain things I had planned, but since I don't truly like live there, there were still things that came up that I was like, okay, like I have to pivot quick and like versus like living here, like, when I do them here in Sonoma County, it's like, okay, like I'm right here. If I need something, there's like family, like people can come help me if it just makes it a little bit easier. But
They're
yeah.
so fun. I'm so glad that you're doing them, and hopefully we're working on you being at our retreat. So
So
more to
excited.
come. We are trying to figure. I mean, we've done the overnight, and then we're doing 2 days,
Yeah.
and then we're gonna do
Mhm.
overnight again because we're trying to like feel what feels best for people. So
Yeah. I
it's
have to say, like, especially because I know that you guys, like, it's a lot of moms, right, that are coming. So I have to say, like, I feel like a lot of that target audience kind of wants to do like the daytime retreat or something like that. And it's cool because not everybody does the day retreat. So it is super cool that you're making that accessible, where it's like you can come, you can still go home and sleep in your own bed. You can still go home to your kids. I know that it's hard to leave your kids, but come and at least get like a good break and get poured into. And my favorite thing too about like retreats is the fact that like for me, like back when I was like starting my healing journey and I would do like on the same day or over a weekend, I would do like Reiki, acupuncture, sound bath, going to like a religious thing or whatever it was. I would do like 5 different things in a weekend. And I was like driving all over the county, or like driving way out to the ocean to like have my like moment of like solitude and then coming back here. And honestly, that is like so chaotic when you have to like pack it all in like that. So like having a retreat where a lot of these things are coming to you, like it's just so worth it. It's absolutely worth it. Just
actually
go
a great point of
unplug.
view. Yeah.
Yeah, like just go to one place, and you don't have to do any of the work. Like that's the cool thing. Like, especially like in an overnight or something, it's like, people are feeding you, people are like serving you lunch, like whatever. Like it's just, you don't have to worry about people's laundry or what you're gonna cook.
I'm telling. So the point of this story is every freaking penny is worth it. Just putting it
Yes.
out there. I mean,
Yeah.
yes, you just have to find the value in yourself to know
Yeah.
that like you are capable of spending this amount of money on you. And especially if you're a mom, and this is like one of the things like, my mommy group of people, that's really hard for them. They're like, I
Yeah.
can't justify spending this money when I have kids, or, money is really tight. But it's like you have to like pour into yourself to pour into others. We all know this, right? So it's like being able to make that leap and make that switch in your mind that like you deserve it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And knowing that you do, because it's like we spend so much money on, everything else, right? Like if it was for your kid to go to a camp, to do something fun, you would spend it in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Like,
I could go on for days about that, but I'm not.
yeah.
Okay, so you do the retreats.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about your podcast and what your podcast is about, who your guests are, so people can
Yeah.
follow you.
I feel like I don't talk about my podcast as much anymore, so it's so funny. It's so cool.
You're like, oh
Um,
yeah, I have a podcast.
I know. I love doing the podcast. Like, so the podcast is like what got me started. Basically, it's the place where I share everything that I'm learning, and that's like truly why I got into it was I was doing like my own like eat, pray, love journey. Like I was doing the sound baths and the chanting with Buddhist monks and even whale watching and like all these like cool just things that I was doing to like heal. And so my podcast was birthed out of like at first I was going to write a book and I was trying to like journal all the activities I was doing. And I was like, I just don't like writing as much as I like talking. I can talk all day long.
Me too.
So so I was like, okay, let's just start like documenting this. And then I like somehow learned about podcasts and started this. But yeah, so I truly I love to come on and just like talk about different healing modalities that I've learned or that I use. I also started getting into just sharing like different books that I've read, but giving like the condensed, like the Cliff Notes version. It's just basically about like collapsing time for the listeners so that like everything that I'm doing and spending hours and hours doing and learning, spending money doing, it's like I can just give you in like a free podcast format and like you can just listen and like learn and change your own life.
I love
So,
that. I
yeah,
love it.
I love it.
And your voice is very soothing. And like, I love listening to your podcast. I'm like,
Thank
always
you.
like, oh, and I'm not driving as much. So I feel like I am not like
Mhm.
up to date as much as I would like to be. And I did like an upgrade. I switched phones. And so all the podcasts I was following like went away. So now I only like really follow like my true people who are like my go-tos. And it's basically every woman you just mentioned.
Right? Yeah.
Monica, sure. Keisha. I'm like, there's not a lot of I don't listen to any others anymore.
I know it does get to be a lot, but it's like like to your point, like it is super cool because like you have your go-tos and like everybody else has like, it's like different for everybody, which is like the coolest thing. Like it's such a big space now.
And then talk about your membership. And you mentioned it, but what does that entail? And
Yeah, so like how I got into all of this stuff is truly like it's so crazy. So I had the podcast for a long time. I kept feeling like there's something more. And I kept like hearing the word retreat. And this is gonna like because you're like, I am not woo-woo. This is like so weird or so just out there. But it was like I literally kept hearing the word like in my head. Like I don't know how to explain it. It was just like retreat, like retreat. And then I started hearing other people saying the word, like retreat. So I learned like I was at an event, of course, and I was sitting next to somebody that I had known for a long time in the same space, Crystal Jacobo, I think you know her. Um, and I was just like, oh my God, like I realized that she has a mastermind where she can like help you to like elevate, get into business, kind of elevate your business and stuff. And I was like, dude, I keep hearing this word retreat. Like, I need to act on this. So then, started the retreats, which we talked about. And then I was like, but wait, like, there's so many women who truly just can't make it to a retreat. Like, it's just not a right time. I know a lot of like single moms where childcare is just not going to happen. And I was like, but you guys need these tools too. Like, I want to like bring all of this to you somehow, like somehow. So I started a membership. It's called the Rise Sisterhood, where we meet once a week on Zoom and it's, virtual. So we can like just unplug for 1 hour every week. There's like no excuses. You can be folding laundry while you're on the call. Like it's okay. But I do like I introduce a bunch of like healing modalities in that, on those calls. Like sometimes I do sound baths or a guided meditation, or sometimes we just sit and are able to chat, or it's like a hot seat coaching call. I do a lot of the kind of like the healing modalities that I've done over the years, or also things I do with like my one-on-one clients now, but it's like in a group setting. So we're getting like some of that individualized, and then some of it you're kind of like on the call, but you're doing it for yourself, and I'm just kind of guiding you through. Um, and then I have a guest come in about once a month and do something that like I can't do. Like I'm getting my breathwork certification, but I'm not currently like certified to do that. So I, won't be leading you through a breathwork session, but I have a lot of like people that I know who are. And so like they'll come in and do a breathwork, or we just had one where like I guess colleague you could say, she came in and did like a whole like protecting your peace and just energetically like cleansing your area or smudging your home or just that kind of thing. So it's just like tools, for your everyday life, but like a place for you to plug in and do that in a community.
got it. And then what do your one-on-one coaching
Yeah.
plans look like?
So so these are like definitely the woman who needs a lot more guidance. Like, so I tend to work with a lot of women who are kind of like the high achiever, kind of like myself, like where it's like you have all these degrees or accolades or whatever it is, but you still don't feel like you're, hitting that worthiness. Like you still don't feel like you're happy in your life, even though it's like you have the car and the bags and the house, but it's like you're just like, I'm not feeling happy. But a lot of my clients, these are the people who just, they don't have time to like truly cannot unplug from like their corporate job to like come to the membership every Wednesday, or, even a retreat is a little bit out of the question, maybe feel a little bit uncomfortable coming to like really talk about their feelings in a group situation. So we do the group coaching, but I only take about three or so clients, sometimes four, but usually it's about three at a time because I still work full time as a nurse.
I was
So,
gonna, and that was my next question. I'm like, are you still nursing? Oh my God, good Lord.
but I'm on night shift right now, so it's a little bit weird. But yeah, so I'm currently down to like 2 days a week, but yeah, still, it still like knocks me out. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I would assume the ultimate goal is to get out of nursing completely and do this work full
Yeah.
time,
I
which is what we
know
all
it's,
hope for.
yeah, I think my goal, like my dream would be to work. I know this sounds so like bougie, but to come in like 1 or 2 days a month.
Mhm.
That's like my goal.
What is, there's nothing bougie about that.
I know, like I feel so guilty saying that sometimes, but I'm like, I do still love that job. And it's been a block as I've grown my business. I've kind of noticed like that there was a block of me growing my business because I think energetically I was like, I don't really want to leave my career fully.
Mhm.
So I was kind of almost blocking myself. But now I'm kind of okay, like I got a lot of clarity on that. Like I don't have to leave it completely, like, but I definitely cannot work like for the rest of my life. Like, yeah, too much, like 3 days a week, 12-hour shifts, whatever, like it's too much.
Something you mentioned before on the call, and I just had this moment as you were speaking, that I want to touch on. A lot of people have this um, image about having therapy work or having a coach or having somebody to kind of help guide you through. And like I had mentioned, like I'm going to couples therapy, and like I'm okay to admit that because it's something that like it's important for me and my husband to be able to
Yeah.
be on the same page. But you were talking earlier that you have a mentor, or you have a
Yeah.
coach, correct?
Yeah.
And like talk about how that has changed you, because even like we are coaches, right? Or we're retreat leaders and we're
Mhm.
podcasters and I'm a consultant, like we do this work,
Yeah.
but like we can't, we still need somebody to talk to.
What I love is truly being in it in real time.
Yeah.
Like honestly, for me, um, oh my gosh, I have a few things I want to say, but like the first thing is like for me, I kept thinking like I am too broken to start my own podcast. I'm too broken to start my own retreats, whatever it was. And it's crazy because I see like the change in myself, like my own journey and like my own healing from when I've started my first retreat to now, or like starting my podcast. It's been 4 years since I've done my podcast, coming up on the 23rd. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And I see like the change, like it doesn't like, so it doesn't mean that like I stop pouring into myself just because I start pouring into others.
Mhm.
And I still have had like a huge transformation even in these last couple of years. And that's, yeah, to your point, it's like so important to have like your own coach or your own, mentor of some sort or a therapist to like kind of keep you on track for that. Because I mean, if you stop pouring into yourself, then yeah, the transformation might taper off, and you might not, I don't know, continue that journey. For me, since I've been getting really busy, in like having my own business and having, the still doing the nursing career and all of that, it has been like imperative for me to have a coach. And what I'm super blessed is my like basically my business mentor, Crystal. She is like in the personal development space too. And she's also like a little bit woo woo, a little spiritual. And so what's really cool is she like is, the perfect coach for me, just like we were saying, like you'll find your people. Like
Mhm.
for me, she's like the best because I can like talk to her about the business stuff and she can literally be like, "Oh, hey, I don't mean to like put you off. I know you want to talk about business, but I can tell that your nervous system's a little bit on edge. Like I can tell you need to regulate a little bit. How about and literally there's times where I'll have a call with her and she's like, you know what, we'll bump your business call and this call just won't count. And she's certified in breath work and meditation and other things. And so she'll be like, we're gonna do some breath work and we're gonna like just kind of chill out because you can't, if you're not taking care of yourself, then you cannot pour into your business, into your clients, into your family, into any of that. So that's like my biggest blessing. And also like with therapy, I used to go to therapy. I still do occasionally, But right now I'm really into like the somatic healing and like that kind of like the woo-woo modalities. But I remember like the first therapist I ever had, I remember walking into that building and into that office just like literally like in a disguise. Like I had like the whole like the scarf halfway up my head and like a hat on. And I remember just feeling like I don't want people to see me. Like I don't want people to recognize I need therapy because I'm broken. And if I walk in this building and someone sees me, like they're gonna know my secret, you know, that I'm like, I need help. And what's crazy is like I was so young, you know, like young 20s, like back then when I had that happen. But what's so funny is now I'm just like celebrating anybody I know who goes to therapy or who does the healing modalities or the retreats, whatever it is. Like it is like so important. Like you cannot pour, truly, you can't pour into others unless you are being taken care of.
Right.
And your therapist should have a therapist and they should have a therapist and then on and on and on, right? Like everybody needs like this chain because like truly like we need the support. Like just it's just so like it sounds so simple, but having somebody look at your situation from an outside perspective and somebody who's been there
Mhm.
and who gets it and isn't too far away. So it's like while you're still going through your healing journey and helping others on their journey, it's perfect because you're not like so far like Tony Robbins or like, you know, Rachel Hollis cannot come in my life currently and tell me like where I'm at and what to do because they are so far removed from
Mhm.
like where I'm at right now. I need like my mentor or like a therapist who's like just a few like steps ahead of me.
Mhm.
So I think
That's such
that's
a
the
great
beauty.
reminder. I do
Mhm.
want to meet Rachel Hollis someday. I did
Yeah.
go through a practice with somebody for like where you want to take your podcast, and if you could have anyone on your podcast, who would it
Oh,
be?
I love it.
I someday will have a drink with Rachel Hollis. That
Yes.
is my goal. I just freaking love her. I love her energy, and I need to meet her someday.
Yes, you do.
Just putting that out there again to the universe. What's next for you? Like, tell our listeners a little bit what's next, what's to come, how they can find you, and do all of the things to be inspired by you.
Well, I want to mention, first of all, like I feel like it's super important to obviously pour into yourself and do all of that. And I have something I want to give everybody. If you just DM me the word challenge, it's a free 6 day, like it's like a free 6 day course basically, just to help you get kind of centered and find that authentic self. And a lot of the practices that I do in this course are things I do at retreats, which I've never like shared anywhere else. So that's super exciting. So if you guys want that, just DM me the word challenge. And I feel like that's what's next is just continuing to like pour into women and help them find like that authentic version. It's just so important to me. It lights me up so much. Like I'm like I don't care which way this happens, like if it's retreats or writing a book or, you know, whatever, like more workbooks or who knows. Like I have no idea, but I just want every single woman in this world to like feel that authentic version and like stop hiding behind the mask, the people pleasing, all of that.
Ah, so good. So you have changed so much since I first
I
interviewed
know.
you,
It's
and
crazy.
that's why I've been like stalking you. I'm like, can you please come back on my podcast? Because it's so cool to see a lot of the women that have been on like their journey. You know, like we're all
Yeah.
on a journey. We're all still on a healing journey, whatever that looks like in their lives. And so it's been so cool to like revisit everybody and see like what they're up to and the impact they're making. So I appreciate you for coming on. More to come, and it was so good to see you and reconnect with you.
Dude, same. Thank you so much for having me. And I just truly like, I love connecting. This is so awesome. So thank you.
You're welcome.